Before I get started, I want to say that what you've convened here is exactly what the world needs. We're in trouble. There's no point pretending. And we need strong new thinking that brings people together from as many walks of life as possible, who can help us chart a way through this. So I congratulate you and your team for this momentous event. I'm starting to read as if I had perfect eyesight. I also want to thank you all for being here from your many places. I think we're united in our sense of what needs to be done. So I'm just going to go straight into my speech. Becoming the change. When the armies of negation seem to grow stronger and richer day by day, when they seem to want to take over our innocent gardens and our humble orchards, and we don't have the financial means or the weapons to stop them, where is courage to be found? When nature seems to have fewer and fewer people to defend her, when less of us speak for what is great in us, what is decent, and what transformative, where is the wisdom to be found? When each day makes it harder to be clear what we stand for, when negatives have the bigger cultural voices, when the young find fewer and fewer guides to help them through the confusions of technology and of life, where is renewal to be found? These are times that raise big questions in the hearts of the brave. And not all of us are brave. Most of us just manage our way through life, heads down, trying to get the work done. But still, the decisions to be made finds you. If you escape them, then they find you through your children or through someone you love or care about. Then it becomes clear that the world asks of you either that you live up to the potential of the story struggling in you, or you surrender to what seems the greater forces outside of you. It is not enough that we live, that we pay our rents or our mortgages, that we vote with uncertainty, and that occasionally we go to church. We cannot live horizontally like runner beans, and we cannot live like vines upon a structure someone else has erected. It seems we are meant to live like trees, receiving light from the sky, inching ever upwards, spreading our branches and deepening our roots. But how are we to live when the purpose of living is obscured from us? How are we to live when we know not who we are, or how we are to navigate the strange times in which we find ourselves? These are questions which every person ought to be asking themselves every day. For every day in the current era brings changes and unprecedented challenges. And the challenges now are tougher and more momentous because those who have the power to destabilize the world also have the money and more agency and more certainty. We are on the cusp of some of the most negatively radical changes we have seen in over, I'm going to pluck a figure, 50 years. For power is now in the hands of those who see humanity as fodder for their imperial and sometimes even their interstellar dreams. There is nothing more deadly than power wielded by people with a divisive vision for humanity, with a negative and almost vengeful vision, a vision of control and tyranny. This is where we are. And the first thing we ought to do as intelligent dancers with life is to acknowledge it. Let's first, in courage and clarity, acknowledge where we are. Where are we? We are possibly in the antechamber of the last chapter of the human race as we have known it. Environmentally, politically, and spiritually, we are in dark times. For many, it would not look like dark times because all the visible aspects of civilization are still functioning. But if you look below, if you look behind the glamorous billboard of modern life, darkness is coming. For many, it is already here. For some, it has been here a long time. The question is, how did we get here? We walked a road that promised the resources of the earth. The world was offered to us if we lived a certain way and thought a certain way, and we took the offer. We walked a way that said that the earth was ours and that all nature was ours and that power was there to be taken, to be seized. We walked a road that dethroned nature and sectioned the divine. And then we elevated ourselves to the crown of the divine and the mastery over all nature. Then we walked a road that divided the world into those who will serve and those who will rule. We commodified nature and we commodified humanity. We lost the sense of the sacred. In the place of the sacred, we enshrined our egos. It is hard to believe that so much evil can come from choosing a path of iron instead of a path of water. Instead of love, we chose domination. Instead of cooperation, we chose war. Is it surprising that civilization becomes so contradictory, having in it light and great darkness, great art and great wickedness, dreams of freedom alongside master race conceptions, goodness alongside slave trading? We who are alive now are beneficiaries of strange notions of humanity. And all the streams of history are latent in our bones. Which is why we too are passively responsible for our age and all that is happening, unless we actively work to change it with our modest contributions guided by our awareness. We have to be aware of what we carry in us if we're going to be true agents of change. We have to be aware of what tendencies we carry in our blood and in our history if we're going to resist the manipulations which the forces of negation are going to use to divert us from the path best for the future of humanity. They're going to appeal to our egos and our history. They're going to absolve us of crimes against nature and humanity. And they're going to empower what is vicious in us. And they will say, with the Lord, that this is good. We need to cultivate a heightened awareness if we are to become warriors of humanity's best future. We need to be more aware of the issues of our time, but also of the underlying causes, we need to be aware of the true agendas of the political figures of our time, to know how to read what they are saying and what they are not saying. It is not enough anymore to merely consume the news. We have to know how to interpret it. We have been the victims of lies because we have been easy to manipulate, easy to lie to. We have to have a larger sense of history. We have to have a vision of where we would like the human race to go. We have to have a sense of the best future. And to my mind, there are 3 levels to the best future that is possible for us to bring about. I'm not going to go into all 3 of them. But the first is a worldwide transformed attitude towards our planet. We need to protect and nourish and heal the earth. This is something truly worth fighting for because this earth is a miracle in all space, and it is the best home that we've got. There's no need to transform it to make it livable. There's no need to spend a fortune to ship a limited number of people to it. There's no need to adjust the environment. It is here, and it is perfect for us. All we need to do is get our fellow human beings to change their attitude to her and not think of the earth as something to be exploited, something in servitude to us. We need to re-sacralize the earth. We need to reset the dominant struggles of our times. We have been fighting so many silo battles, been fighting battles of race, of gender, of climate. While we have all thought we're fighting the major battles of our individual primary interests, we have actually been fighting one another. We have been divided. We have been distracted. Maybe what we need is a new humanism. We certainly need a new inclusive-ism, but one that returns us to the single greatest struggle of our times. We need to find a new unity, a new clarity, a new destiny for the human. We need to redefine ourselves truly. Our future is only as rich as we perceive ourselves to be. For too long, we have subjected ourselves to a mean description of what we are. We're not just here to create wealth, and we're not just here to generate wealth for others. We're not here merely to work. That would make us no different from ants, and I love ants. But we are here to transform and to be transformed. This is where we come to the central role of the imagination in the shaping possibilities of the future. The world becomes what we have dreamed or what we have allowed. If we are not shaping the future with the force of our dreams, then the future either becomes the reality of others or it becomes the sum total of underlying conditions. This is how chaos grows. We do nothing, we dream nothing, we imagine nothing, and the wasteland of society festers and civilization disintegrates. There are at present 2 forces determining our future. One that says that human beings are merely organic machines with no soul, creatures of random evolution, and therefore nothing special but a product of chance, consciousness being merely the product of chemical combinations and localized concentrations of evolved nerves. And the other view, which maintains that human beings are a mystery, with the inexplicable power of consciousness, with the force of will, the magic of imagination, in a universe that is not accidental, but shows signs of transcendent intelligence and unimaginable powers of organization, throughout which traces of consciousness is present in the smallest and the largest thing, and moreover, one that inspires in us perpetual awe. One view makes us accidental and therefore without roots in the universe, without connection to nature, and the other makes us beings that partake of universal intelligence and transcendental powers of imagination. If we fall under the spell of the mechanistic view of humanity, then we are victims in a random world and have no control over what happens to us, and our presence and duration here are unpredictable and therefore our lives fearful. With this view, we have no agency and therefore susceptible to the manipulations of power and the petrifying fears induced by tyranny. But with the other view, human beings have agency, the citizen has power, and our future is receptive to the strength of our imagination. Through the ages, whether from intuition or from alignment with the forces of nature, poets have always celebrated the fact that the imagination can shape society. It can shape our world. It is doing so all the time. The world as we find it has been shaped by people before us who had their own ideas about how the world should be. But before we attempt to shape the world with our imagination, we must first know it. The world is the accretion of the dreams of the ages. That society works does not mean that it is perfect. We ought to be part of the perfecting of the world. It has to be stressed that the imagination is a real force in the making of the world. Napoleon said somewhere that imagination rules the world. If one nation is more humane, if one nation has more humane laws than another, it was the imagination of that nation that made it possible. Everything that becomes part of reality first comes from the imagination. We have to see things first in the mind or the heart before we can make them real in the world. In that sense, it is imagination that makes reality. This fact is little understood because the quality of the imagination is not taught at schools or at universities, nor is it part of religious education or even sports education. It is not even part of our cultural life, where we take the works created as products to be taken for granted. We receive them complete. We receive Beethoven, Schubert, Baldwin, Shakespeare, Schoenker, Plath, Austen, complete. But they were dreamt, imagined, worked into existence. This includes the political system, the ideologies that run our world, the corporations and the systems of exploitation, and the beliefs we support, all imagined. But here's the rub. Imagination itself is neutral. It is in itself not a positive value. The gas chambers were imagined. The concentration camps and the implements of slavery, the gags, the guns, the nuclear bombs, the cluster bombs, all imagined. So also were many of the cures that have extended life in our times, the surgeries, the laser, aeroplanes, spacecraft, all imagined. Imagination rules the world, and people imagine things and systems based on their beliefs, their vision. Elections are fought on a species of imagination. Elections are not won through facts, for everything is subjective in politics. Policies are designed as a blueprint of action. People vote with their fears, their hopes, their bellies, their dreams. That's why refusal to vote is a failure of the imagination. But one person who can see how things can change for the better is more powerful than 10 people who do nothing or who try to keep things the same. The world tends towards motion, towards transformation. It doesn't take much to change the face of the world. On a quantum level, subatomic particles have a high inclination to conform to observation. They become what we see. I think the secret of the world is in the quantum domain rather than in the large-scale universe. The lessons of the imagination are nowhere more vivid than in the quantum dimension. We see things because we bring consciousness to them. This is true on a psychosomatic level as in the levels of healing in many traditions. The fact is, we tend to run away from our problems. We avoid looking at them and seeing them for what they are. Whatever the problem is, when we look at it for what it is, our relationship to it changes. For me, the power of the imagination is not merely in sitting down to dream up alternative realities. It lies first of all in looking at the world, staring head on at what we wish to change. It lies in seeing it without emotion, seeing it clearly and truthfully as it is, seeing it without fear. Most of the time, we fear before we have looked. The truth is that we cannot properly exercise the powers of imagination till we have looked and seen clearly that which we wish to change. For imagination without clarity of sight is just wishful thinking. And imagination without the work that makes that which is imagined to become real is just laziness. Imagination builds with the mind, but we must build with our bodies. We must build with our will. If we want to change the world, we must imagine the change, and then we must fight for it. We must build it as if we hadn't imagined it in the first place. Imagination is no substitute for hard work. We will not alter the disastrous conditions, direction of world politics only by imagining a better world, a more humane, more intelligent politics. We also have to plan for it, campaign for it, raise money for it, and then mobilize our generation to vote for it. Let me stress how the role of imagination works in the building of futures. It gives a direction for the will and for our energies to follow. It carves out the terrain before we do. It rehearses the future, and by rehearsing, it makes magnetic that which we dream. That is also how we get through bad times. When appalling policies are turning the world upside down, we get through by seeing beyond it, dreaming beyond it, and making a better future inevitable. We must learn to see that time has layers in it, and that what is manifest now no longer belongs to now, and that what is here now are merely the fruits of the uncontested dreams of the past. If it is here, it is already passing, and time is therefore ripe for a new dream that will become the future. I'm going to go a little personal now in terms of Britain, where I live. The dreams that gave rise to Brexit already died the day that Brexit won. We can say now that the Brexit dream is exhausted. It was not a reality that could finally sustain itself. Many things have come into reality that cannot sustain themselves. Their roots are not as deep as they seem. Just because they're here now does not mean that they are inevitable. Sometimes we fall into a reality that we allowed to come into being because we did not properly challenge the conditions that made them possible. So we must look clearly at what is here today. But we must not make the mistake of thinking that the present will become the future. And we must not make it so with our fears. Please do not be mesmerized by how the world looks now. Let's be focused on how we want the world to look in 5 or 10 years' time. There's only one way to defeat the present, and that is to outdream it. For me, the power of imagination is our basis for eternal optimism. If one can imagine a different future, then we can create it. But imagination works with time. It works with dimensions. We have to become the possibility that is needed in the world. In bad times, we imagine. In bad times, we renew ourselves. In bad times, we see the truth of what we are, and we work on the transformation of ourselves to become the people who can be of use to the world when the time is right. Too often we bemoan how things are, but we remain the same. We should always be transforming ourselves into a fuller realization of our possibilities. It is for this reason that tough times reveal what people really are. When times are bad, I see many people hunker down, they trim their sails, they work hard, they keep their heads below the parapet. But the world is always waiting for our transformation that we may serve it better. When times are bad, grow. Even now, with the right-wing tilt of world politics, the world is waiting for those who take the trouble to understand the true underlying need of the times for real vision and who make themselves ready for a unique kind of leadership. For what the world needs is vision. There are many who have ambition, who have ideas, who have plans, who have desires, but precious few have a vision that can genuinely heal and transform the world. In the Middle East, what is sorely, tragically lacking is vision. In the most brilliant lands of the earth, where the cleverest people live, and there is a staggering absence of vision. In the greatest nations with unimaginable economic and military power, what is catastrophically lacking? Vision. They have everything, but they do not have a dream that can take the human race to the next great stage of its evolution. Instead of crafting a vision, instead of digging deep into their humanity, they find it easier to pass on the responsibility for their thinking and their imagining, for their hard and loving understanding to artificial intelligence. We create computers that will create computers that will do our thinking for us, do our understanding for us, do our imagining for us. I have nothing against computers and against innovations and quantum discoveries in science, but we cannot abdicate to machines our responsibility for vision. We have to live in this world, and we have to make a world that is beautiful for all. We need a new world vision. There is no way around it. Our national visions will not solve the great problems of our nations anymore, because we are now in a time of world crisis. Pandemics, climate change, migration, poverty, war, inequality, injustice, hunger, the challenges of artificial intelligence, water, food, cancer, diseases, suicide rates, alcoholism, loneliness, oppression, dwindling resources, nuclear proliferation, famine. These are now global problems with global implications. Nations cannot talk about making themselves great at the expense of making the rest of humanity small. That breeds selfishness and isolation and ultimately the very opposite of greatness. For to set yourself against the world is finally not sustainable. Besides, the worst effect of that contempt for the rest of humanity is the hatred of that very same humanity that you need to do business with so that you can be great again. I think we need to make humanity great again. We need to lift up the idea and the reality of the human. Right now, the idea of humanity is taking a major beating from those who have power now and think that they are above humanity. The perception of humanity has never been lower. The way people are treated in the world right now, you would think that the species were trying to eliminate the human race as it was. Human beings are being treated worse than dogs when they make the mistake of visiting certain countries legitimately or even as refugees. Not to talk of the way refugees are currently being treated. People are allowed to drown in certain seas. Innocent children are bombed with impunity in certain wars. It has been over 100 years since our fellow human beings were treated so scandalously. So, we need to regenerate the idea and the dignity of what it means to be a human being. We need to make humanity dignified again, need to make humanity sacred again. Over the last 10 years, the idea of humanity has been slowly eroded. All political struggles hinge on the question of what weight you would give a human being, on what questions you would ask before you would treat them like human beings. This is the blazing question of the day. What is a human being? Many of the wars in the world today turn on the question of who is perceived to be human and who is not. I grew up in the midst of a civil war, and I saw that they dehumanize you first, in rumors, in stories, in propaganda. And then it is easier to treat you as not human afterwards. It is the only way to explain the extreme callousness we witness in the conflicts that beset the world today. And I learned from these long years that things turn, that things continue in the way they have, unless we turn them, unless we change them. Power, too, follows the line of least resistance. It will go on doing what it does, go on tyrannizing, go on oppressing, if no one opposes it. Power takes the response of the world for its measure. If the world is silent, power simply goes on doing more and more of what it wants to do. To power, silence is consent. The biggest mistake we can make to power is to be silent, for power easily interprets silence as weakness, as fear. And power needs fear to operate. Fear is its fertilizer. It is a natural impulse of people to keep silent in bad times, to keep their heads low. They call it survival. It is how dictatorships thrived in Eastern Europe and in Germany in the 40s and 50s, and in many places in Africa in the 70s and 80s. But the silence of the people multiplies the power of tyranny, the power of colonizers, the power of those who would spread devastation and take over the world. The more silent people are, the longer tyranny lasts. In these times, knowing what we know from history, we must find a way to work on the forces of change that is working on us. Change is happening, and we should change that change. Humanity is still in flux. The game appears settled, but it isn't. While we sit here, the plots to alter the world into an unrecognizable and inhumane version of itself is heavily underway. It needs the power of our souls to solidify it into unalterable realities. It needs the contract of our silence. It needs the blood of our dreams. All this, we give it if we stay silent and do nothing. There are times to do nothing, but this is not one of them. The future is being made and solidified while we sleep. We will wake up one day and an unrecognizable world will be there before us, one that we did not create, but which we allowed to come into existence with the silent force of unjust laws that become just because they become laws. Never was it more needed for us to realize that we are the force and the structure of the world, that the world is made with the star-like substance of our souls. We must either use this soul force to create a good and decent world, or allow it to be used in our silence to create a world without freedom, without variety, a quietly genocidal world. We need to wake up to our soul force. We need to wake up our soul force. History is made with no other substance than the force of soul. This force flows into intelligence, work, resistance, analysis, creativity, and all the forms through which life is maintained and taken forward in society. But it is the one force that bad leaders don't want us to know about. It is the one force that terrifies tyrants. It is the one force that can turn the world upside down and remake it, redream it in accordance with the highest conception of the human divinity. For that is really how we should be referred to. We are human and divine. We have more than a spark of the Godhead in us, more than a shaft of universal consciousness. It is in the interest of power that we never wake up to this light, because when we do, we will see through all the lies. And we will know automatically what kind of world we want to live in, and we will realize that most of our leaders are still dwelling in the caves of human possibility and are merely dragging us down, dragging us backwards. They fill the world with lies and try to make the lies the bricks of a new reality. But there's one major problem with this. You cannot hold the world up with lies, for lies contaminate reality. Then the reality made of lies becomes unstable and unsustainable. This will breed chaos and disorder and a society where anyone can make up anything and nothing means anything anymore. The Nazis tried to make the world with bricks of lies. Then they used force, the force of the military and the force of law, to make that reality stand. And it stood for a while. Then it collapsed in darkness and suicide. This does not mean that lies can't be sustained as realities for thousands of years. Many empires succeeded in doing just that. But it cannot be sustained indefinitely. And in our times, when consciousness and technology have together undergone a tremendous acceleration, power cannot do now what empires did before in those times of darkness. A house built with lies cannot stand. A house maintained with force cannot endure forever. There is something in us which sooner or later will wear down the force power that sustains a house against its own highest destiny. How do we survive these times of change? By knowing that ultimately the real power is ours. And by educating ourselves in the structures of the world so that we may know how to undo power structures that no longer serve our highest good. There is no substitute for realizing that everything we think about power is upside down. We need to invert our thinking. It's not that our leaders hold the power. This is a visual enchantment that we have fallen into. They are and have always been temporary custodians of the power that we have given to them. The army, the laws, the public ceremonies may blind us to this fact, but the truth is that we are the power, and behind us stands an even greater power that moves everything. I don't know what you call that greater power, but I know it is a universal force for good. Therefore, there is no real cause for despair. It is our right to say yes when the power structures serve humanity well, and to say no when it perverts and destroys and divides us and makes us small and mean and fearful. Do you mind if I drink some water? Home straits. We have to see through the illusions that the media sets up. Everyone knows that you can no longer trust most of the sources of information. So, we should not rely on information to know who we are and what we think and what we want for our world. Difficult times increase the responsibility on us to be more true to our humanity. This is not a time for folding up and hiding from life because it seems too much. This is precisely the time to engage with life, to engage with the difficulties, to develop stamina and resilience. If the times are tough, well, we should let it cook us. Let it transform us into the brave, tough human beings we need to be if we are to change this world into something brighter. The world tells us what we need to be. Fraudulent times tell us to be more authentic. Lying times tell us to build our hearts around truth. Fake times tell us to cultivate the real. The truth is, we are being asked to be more. That's why you're all here. We are being asked to be more creative about our lives and our politics. We are being asked to rise to the challenge of the age. We are being asked to be new people because we cannot combat the difficulty of our times as the people we used to be. We have to be fit and healthy. We have to create wider and wider communities and alliances, and we have to fight the evil in our times intelligently. But the best and wisest use of our time, apart from fighting injustice, is dreaming a new future and working towards it. We have to dream and work. We have to dream and grow and work. We have to provide better alternatives to the current direction of history. We have to be the world we want to create. We have to be fighters and dreamers, because the new masters of the world think that those who want the best for the world are weak. They think dreamers are weak. They think we can't fight. The world requires now that we be tough in spirit and tough in body. It requires that we be intellectually tough and that we be tough dreamers too. We have to prepare for a long haul. The fight is on several fronts: political, environmental, technological, and spiritual. Which is to say, we have to incarnate in our lives a new kind of love for humanity and the world. Call it an existential love, if you want. Loving beyond ourselves. It's the kind of love that's worth becoming a new person for. A love that calls upon all our powers. So the real war of our times is between those who want to control the world and those who just love it. against the kind of power and ruthlessness that the controllers of the world are going to wield, the love that must fight it has to be of an altogether greater level. It has to be tough, wise, intelligent, practical, honest, fearless, regenerative. In short, a superpower. At great historical turning points like this, nothing less is expected of us. We were born for this. We were born to take the human race forward. There is no accident to our presence here today, here together. We are born for these times because this moment in history requires our full awareness and our full presence. There is no time for pessimism, doubt, or depression. Let's get busy making history. People keep asking, what shall I do? What can I do? I feel powerless. And I say, you're only powerless because you are not busy using your wonderful life force to make history. Change the world in any way you can. Join progressive communities. Get together and start a movement. Join one if you're not a movement starter. Research it well. Ask if it is progressive, diverse, gender generous, and has a vision. Serve in whatever way you can with whatever talents you have. And if the movement fails, don't rend your hair over it. Find another, or keep whatever communities you have found alive. But keep spreading the word. Keep dreaming. Remember, the greatest trick that power plays on us is to make us feel that we are powerless and that we are nothing on our own. But just charging the atmosphere with conversation, with protest, with your votes is doing something. We have to impregnate the air with our hope and our fight for a better, fairer future. Infect the world with your light. We are here to live our lives fully and to enrich our times. And if you want, to gain enlightenment. That's it. If you are here and can understand this speech, then you have enough fire in you to change your lives and to change the world. You have enough fire to start a new civilization. For each one of us is a civilization and a home to the world. And every moment is a test and a choice. A test of your humanity and a choice of your destiny. And there is really only one sustainable choice for the human race, and that is upwards. We are destined to become more. Our evolution is ongoing. Evil is just a challenge to our choice to become more, to become greater. The only thing that defines us, ladies and gentlemen, is what we do, what we dream, what we create together in this magic dream of life. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. That was beautiful and very challenging and very inspiring. And it makes me think of a quote, I don't know who said it, probably many people, but it's our poets that are our truth tellers and such an important part of society. And especially in a room of many folks who work in the world of science and data and methodologies. So it's lovely to have the poet's voice here to start us off. I would like to ask you a question, which is hinged on a quote that I have used of yours many, many times. And that is that the truth about stories is that's all we are. We are the stories that we plant in ourselves. We are the stories that we plant in others. I have quoted you on that many, many, many times. And the reason is because I believe it to be true. And I often say, our policies are stories. Our finance, like our budgets, are stories. Our nations are stories. Our families are stories. All of these things are stories, about what we value and what we don't value. So the question I want to ask you is, what stories particularly give you hope right now? What do you see out there in the world that gives you hope, whether it's a grassroots project or a major global policy or something that's happened in your neighborhood? Whatever it is, what stories particularly give you hope?
Well, thank you very much for quoting that little piece of writing of mine. I believe it, like you as well, that we're stories and that our world impregnated with stories. And it's what we do, consciously or unconsciously. And that our stories, our secret stories, our destinies, our real destinies, are not the stories that we tell ourselves in the mirror, that we tell ourselves every day. Our real destinies are made by the secret stories that we don't even know we're telling. So to answer your question, I don't look at the big stories of the big events and the big amazing things. It's the smaller things that really strikes my imagination. I saw a film yesterday about a movement that is sort of gone quiet in Britain, a movement that fought climate change and was in its heyday. And there was a moment in the film when they'd taken over Oxford Street, and people joined in a joyful spirit of the hope for climate awareness. And these kids, these two kids, just lay on the street. And the reporters said, well, what are you doing? They said, well, we saw people dancing around, so we thought we weren't going to be run over. And then the next shot was of two really old people in their 90s, just sitting against a wall, part of this short-lived euphoria for change. The young and the very old, that gives me hope. Because the older we get, the more fearful we become. So the fact that the old can also be optimistic really moves me. And that the young can be enchanted by the possibility of change really moves me as well. Yeah.
That's great, thank you. I wonder if anybody in the audience has a question for Ben. Anybody? We have a couple of mics roaming around. Just put up your hand. Now we can see you. Anybody?
There's a gentleman. There's a gentleman in the middle who started the hand-raising business.
Thank you, Ben. That was very special. Thank you. I think my question is about hope and the appeasing danger of hope, in that by embracing hope we might lull ourselves into inaction. And I just was wondering what would be kind of your reaction to that.
Yeah, well, there's passive hope and there's dynamic hope. So it's a very, very important question. Hope. I've often felt that hope can be very deceptive, and hope can make us stay at home. You have a very powerful point. Hope can make us say, well, it's going to get better, so I don't need to do anything. But that is passive hope. What we need is active hope. Active hope is things have to get better. And I'm going to be part of that. I'm going to be part of making that possible in whatever way I can. So I think we need to qualify hope. But let's not undermine it either, because hope kept people alive during many dark periods in history when it seemed like nothing was going to change, and when people felt powerless and couldn't really do anything, or felt they couldn't do anything. But they were doing something by quietly keeping hope alive, even if it's for the generations. So There's active hope, there's passive hope, there's also active passive hope. Thank you.
Another question? Mics?
So I think I saw one first down here.
There's someone near you, where you are right now. Okay, you prefer a longer journey. Okay.
Yes. Always.
Thank you so very much. My name is Louis. I followed that and touched me deeply. Yet there's one question that comes to my mind of one of the great philosophers of the 20th century. What's love got to do with it? Probably for you, but also for the unfolding of the entire gathering here, when we look at all these initiatives, measurements, science, activism. What's love got to do with it?
There's a question, Ben.
There's a question from a truly great philosopher. Well, love's got everything to do with it, I think. We know because we know what happens when it's not there. When it's not there, you feel it. You feel the deadness. You feel the mediocrity. You feel the keep on goingness, the sparklessness, the absence of magic. But you know, it's a really overused word, and I'd like to create sort of dimensions in it, but not now, because the love that we're talking about is, to my mind, the greatest force in the universe. It's the greatest force that we wield. I mean, we've got many forces inside us. You know, we've got will, which is tremendous. With will, you can do all kinds of, you can do incredible things with will. Some people think will is the greatest force. You know, we've got intelligence, we've got patience, we've got so many great forces, but none of them activates all the forces in us, plus the ones we don't know we have, like love. It's the only one that is fourth dimensional. It's the only one. You put two people together, equal skills. One's got more will than anybody else in the world, but the other one's got more love of what they're doing than anyone else. And will, you know, take the house down, but love will change the world that the house was taken down in. You know, love has imagination in it, it's got will in it, it's got patience, it's got resilience, it's got judgment, adaptability, thoughtfulness, it's got everything in it. T.S. Eliot said somewhere that humility is endless. I was like, yeah, humility is great, but not next to love. Love is endless. I'm talking about real love here. I'm talking about the love that we have for our children, the love that we have for ourselves, the love that we should have for our world. So, what's love got to do with it? Little word, tiny little word, another 4-letter word, but has more power in it than a nuclear bomb. Because one can only blow things up. The other can build universes. Sorry about that.
I'm not sure we can top that. To end this conversation, Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. I really appreciate you setting us off on a fabulous course for this symposium. One of the things I wrote down was we all have to be warriors for humanity's future. And I agree with you. I think that's one of the reasons we're here today, over the next couple of days, to really understand what that means and to understand how we can all be brave in the face of that. So thank you for your words. Thank you for bringing your heart and your soul to everything you said. I believe you'll be joining us for dinner and staying on. So
I'm starving already.
Awesome. So I'm sure other people have other questions, and Ben will be here, so people can find you and continue the conversation with you. But really just want to say it's a deep honor. Thank you very much. And we're blessed to have you with us. So another round of applause for Ben.
Thank you very much.